Let's look at Old Testament dates from a different angle. Genesis 16:16 describes how Abraham was 86 years old when Ishmael was born to his wife. Hagar bore Ishmael when Abraham was 86 years old. Now, pay attention, because in Genesis 21:5, Abraham is 100 years old when Isaac was born to him. Skip down to Genesis. In Genesis 21:8, Isaac grew and was weaned. Now, how many years does this put between Isaac and Ishmael? In one verse, we are told that Abraham was 86 when Ishmael was born to Hagar. In another verse, we're told that he was 100 when Isaac was born to Sarah. 100 minus 86, let's see, 10 minus the 6, carry the 9, 14, okay? Comes out to 14. Then we're told in Genesis 21:8 that Isaac was weaned. Tradition in the Middle East is that weaning takes 2 years. So now we have a 14-year difference between Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac has been weaned for 2 years, so that means Ishmael is now what? 14 plus 2? You got it, 16 years old. Fine, so far, if you don't look into it too deeply. But let's work on down to Genesis 21:14 through 19, which tells the story of Ishmael and his mother when they were allegedly cast out. Now remember, at this point, Ishmael cannot be less than 16 years old. The 14-year difference between when he was born and when Isaac was born, 2 more years for weaning, 16-year-old youth. And yet, what do we find in Genesis 21:14 through 19? Let me read it to you, and you pick out for me the passages which don't match the description of a 16-year-old. Quote, "So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, and putting it on his shoulder, he gave it and the boy to Hagar." Okay, I'm cheating. I said you tell me, but I guess I'm going to underline with my voice. "And sent her away. Then she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water in the skin was used up, and she placed the boy under one of the shrubs." Placing a 16-year-old boy under a shrub, and he stays there? Interesting. "Then she went and sat down across from him at a distance of about a bow shot. For she said to herself, 'Let me not see the death of,'" you got it, "the boy." What is the situation here? They've run out of water in the desert. She has put Ishmael under a shrub and walked away from him because she does not want to, quote, "see the death of the boy." Are we to believe that a 16-year-old Ishmael could not crawl out from underneath the shrub, as if a mother could force a 16-year-old under a shrub in the first place, and he, for some reason, could not walk over to his mother and say, "Hey, Mom, what's going on? What are you doing?" But this is what we're told to believe. "So she lifted her voice and wept," quote, "and God heard the voice of the lad." The lad, the boy. "Then the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, 'What ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in your hand.'" Now, skepticism begins to set in here. Here we have Hagar allegedly being told to lift up 16-year-old Ishmael and hold him with her hand. Quote, "For I will make for him a great nation." Well, then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the, well, you can guess it, gave the lad a drink, as if he was not capable of getting it for himself. An inconsistency? Most definitely. One that jumps out at you? One that jumps out at us? Well, when we're told about it. But not the kind of inconsistency that is easy to discover. However, once discovered, we've got to deal with it. How do you deal with an Old Testament that claims to be Scripture, and yet it describes a 16-year-old youth as being incapacitated? Remember, we are talking about a time and a nation where 16-year-old men were married and waiting for their second or third child. We're talking about a day and age where 16-year-olds were heads of households, and at times they were kings. And we're told that this 16-year-old, healthy youth was being treated like an incapacitated child.